My name is Morgan, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about thought, meaning, and translation. But before I do that, I want to ask you all, how many of you know or have taken a second language before? Okay, so a lot of us. What if I told you that you'll never fully be able to understand that language? Would that make you maybe a little confused, maybe even a little bit angry? Well, that's kind of what I'm going to discuss today. So my main points are, I'm going to do a summary of the news article, and then I'm going to talk about the key concepts and their relation to the news article. And then at the end, I want to talk about how this can relate to community, because we are a communication and community class. My thesis is machine translation is ineffective and unclear because the symbols and their meanings created in a culture are influenced by that culture's language and thought. So the key concepts that I chose are language, knowledge, and identity from chapter 3 in our textbook. And so this is my news article. The title is Translation an Art or a Math Problem? And it was from the New York Times Magazine. And as you can see, well, it's kind of long, and so I'm not really gonna show much of this. I just wanted to let you guys know that I had it. So this news article was written by Lewis Cross on June 2015, and basically what he talks about is he asks the question, does translation reach its full potential by using human translators or machines embedded with algorithms? So he's trying to discover what makes human translators so unique and different from machines that translate. He discusses the creation of machine translation and the ineffectiveness of Google Translate, which is a translation machine I'm pretty sure all of us are familiar with and pretty irritated with as well. He discusses how Google Translate works and why it cannot reach the potential of human translators. And towards the end, he states how machines are useful for speed if they are correct, but human translators can see the purpose and means behind the text or language. What I took away from the article was, it is impossible to reflect an entire language in algorithms. Why? Because there are too many exceptions and meanings are not the same across cultures. So for example, idioms. Idioms are a part of language where the meanings are shared within that culture and Google Translate can't really pick it up. Which leads me into my second point, the key concepts and their application to the article. So from the textbook, the quote that I pulled out was, language, the symbols we depend upon, exchange, and use for understanding, including body language and gestures, as well as the spoken and written word, the metaphors that we internalize and then express, creates culture, encodes our thought and patterns, and frames the ways we will perceive, relate to, and act in the world. Language, culture, and thought all work together to form meanings. Without these three working together, meaning is lost and the correct messages cannot be conveyed. A machine cannot detect culture and thought. It can only detect the words from that language that were inputted into its system. This is why something like Google Translate is flawed and inaccurate. And a quote from the news article is, when I look at an article in Russian, Weaver wrote, I say, this is really written in English, but it has been coded in some strange symbols I will now proceed to decode. Whenever a language is being decoded or translated, meanings are lost, because not all meanings are the same since they are influenced by language, thought, and culture. If language, culture, and thought are all influenced by each other, what is written or spoken in one language can never be accurately translated to another, because each culture creates different meanings with the things they interact with. So for example, you have the Spanish verbs saber and conocer. Both of them mean to know. However, they're used in different ways. Saber is used to know facts, so you can say, I know of this. Conocer is when you're using it personally, so you can say, I know Katie, usually used with people. However, in English, there is no difference. Even though this example is pretty simple, there is so much more to a language. No language is simple. Each is complex and has their own meanings. Now that I've explained the article and shown how these concepts relate to it, I'm going to talk a little bit how this relates to community. So another quote from our text says that, thus it is very important to understand the direct relationship between language, culture, and thought, as these affect the sustainability of any culture in relation to the life systems upon which it depends. So no matter what kind of community you're in, you're there for a reason. So many of you have the same thoughts and meanings about whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Without this common relationship between thought, culture, language, and meanings, it would be difficult to come to an agreement. An agreement is what helps sustain a community. It keeps it going because if community is constantly arguing, it could create discord and the community could collapse. So in conclusion, I believe the author is trying to tell his audience that translation is useless unless meanings can be shared, identified, and processed between the cultures involved. Machines will not be able to understand meaning. It can only process words and try to organize them into coherent sentences with no context whatsoever. So human translators are still needed. Language, culture, and thought are all influenced by each other, and they shape our actions and help us create meaning. Thank you.